What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Traditional Rod and Custom. I'm Oliver. In today's video, we're going to go over assembling a rear spring pack for any early Ford with the transverse rear spring. And we're also going to talk about Hillbilly crash helmets. Get into it. First thing I want to talk about is Hillbilly crash helmets. In the 60s, Ed Roth and Mouse, they kind of teamed up. They were both doing airbrush shirts at car shows and swap meets and stuff. Custom, one-off airbrush shirts, the Rat Fink, and a lot of these creatures came out of those days. And in addition to that, they both marketed, I believe Ed Roth called them Hillbilly crash helmets, and I think Mouse actually called them Hill and Country crash helmets from the ad I've seen, because Mouse ran an ad in Hot Rod magazine that had most of his stuff in it. Now, what they would do is they had these felt hats, and I believe most of them were black, but they were real tall and peaked, and they would be airbrushed. They started getting a little more merchandisey over time, so they had a stencil, and they were all kind of the same. That they would say RF on them. Ed Roth's were that was for Rat Fink, and they had little droplets all over them. Mouses were custom, so you could either order or get one from them that had your name airbrushed on the front, or a big monster face, or any number of things. But they were just a big part of that silly hat movement, maybe the beginning of the silly hat movement. And guys just wore them, swap meets and car shows, and driving their roadster, kept the sun off their ears, driving their roadsters. And it was just a cool thing. And it's a little bit of a lost thing to history. You just don't see guys doing that as much. And when I was a year or two ago, I was reading Joey Ukrop's article on the ham forum on jalopyjournal.com, and he was talking about Hillbilly crash helmets. And the point in Joey Ukrop's article was that, or I guess the centering issue was that him and some of his buddies all got together and they made their own Hillbilly crash helmets. They put their initials on them, just like Ed Roth would have done Rat Fink. And it was kind of funny because, being black, those hats look kind of like witches' hats. So Joey was talking about all the guys that take themselves too seriously, who are making fun of him and giving him a hard time, and then the other side of people who were so super excited about it and thought it was cool, the kids that thought it was funny and neat. And I was reading in the comments, and one of these guys in there was talking about how back in the day, like, this was a total thing that they did, and they'd go get 1940s and 50s felt dress hats, and they'd soak them in water and stretch them over a fence post, and that's how they made these. It's always intrigued me. So for a year or two now, I've thought about that, and I wasn't sure I really wanted a black witch's hat. I don't know that I was necessarily, if that's what came along, I don't know that's what I would have avoided. But basically what happened is, I went to a Renaissance fair recently with the family, and at the Renaissance fair, they had almost the perfect black hat, short brim like this, and it already had a peak. A witch's hat, was the idea. But the only issue was it was knitted. It wasn't felt. And I was real close to buying it. It was like $20, and I thought, I could put a couple letters on that thing. It'd be pretty dang close. And in the end, I decided, it wasn't quite right. So I left it be, and I came home. But the recent exchange with the memory really spurred a little drive in me. And so what I did is, I've always worn cowboy hats quite a bit, and I went over to where we have some of our stuff stored from before our move. I was just kind of looking around, and I found this old John B. Stetson, and unfortunately it had gotten some moisture and some mold started on it. The band was all molded out. The liner was all stained and molded. It was pretty gross looking. And I sat and looked at it, and I thought, that's kind of a bummer. And then I thought, you know, I'm probably never going to wear that hat again. Just because, you know, I have like 4 or 5 other cowboy hats that I would go to long before I would go to Mr. Moldy over here. So what I did is I brought it home, and I cut the threads on the band off, pulled the band off. I took the liner out, flipped it upside down in the sink, and I filled it with water, and just hot water, and let it soak. And I followed the same path that that guy on the ham comments said, and I stretched it and stretched it and stretched it. This is the 3rd round of stretching here. I think I'm going to leave it here because it's starting to feel a little thin up top. Not real thin, but the last thing you want to do is tear through it, you know. And I cut 1.5 inches off the brim. And in the process of stretching it and pulling it and stuff, the brim got this cool looking wobble to it. And I got my Hillbilly crash helmet. I'm not sure if I'm going to airbrush it, if I'll put anything on it, or if I'll just leave it as is. I kind of like it as is. I don't know. I may make a second one. In fact, I may even get to a point where I make them and market them whenever the channel monetizes and everything. If people are into them, you know. I mean, it's a nice fur felt hat, and I'm sure I can track down fur felt hats secondhand for not a whole lot of money and make these. And without the hat band in, you can really fit them to any size head you want. You know, they just kind of plume out and fit. But yeah, I like it. I'm gonna have a roadster here soon, and I'm gonna have another roadster after that, and I'll need something to keep the sun off my head. And I definitely go to swap meets and stuff a lot, so I don't mind being the funny hat guy. But there's a little history for you, and hope you dig my silly hat. And if you don't, sorry, I guess, for you. Whatever. But let's get into that spring pack. I'm just going to show you one method for how you can go about it, how I do it. Hope it's helpful. And we're getting pretty close on that roadster. Getting pretty close. I got to finish boxing and doing some stuff to the passenger side. And strip it down, paint it real quick. We're really getting close. Gotta do the drive line. And then the body's coming over. When the body comes over, we're gonna be home stretching here. It's getting close. So let's get into it. First thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and wire wheel the leaves down. Then I'm gonna go ahead and give them a little spritz with some satin black or semi-gloss, Rust-Oleum semi-gloss paint. Just a little rattle can, doesn't need to be anything special. Stuff will hold up just fine. Next, you're going to stretch that main leaf on by hand. It's real easy to do, and you just put your shackles on real quick. When you're building a pack, you got to do it in stages. At least I've found that to be the easiest way. So I'll take 3 springs, layer them up, and get a bolt run through them. You want to do as you're reassembling this for the last time, you want to take some grease, put some grease in here. It'll help keep it from squeaking a whole bunch, and it'll help the springs kind of slide against each other as you're hitting bumps and what have you. Some of these even had the bolt had a hole through the middle and had a grease fitting on the end. I have managed to lose my spring pack bolt. Had it sitting in the same place for 10 months and it's gone. And I've torn the whole place apart around here looking for it, and I can't find it. So I have given up, and I'm going to use a grade 8 bolt that I'm going to have to weld a little on the corners of and grind it into the square shape so it fits up in here. But yeah, it's frustrating. Had the perfect size, original style bolt with a grease fitting, the whole deal. Just the one you want. But anyway, I'm going to get this greased up. What we're going to do is we're going to use the nut here to kind of draw it down close. And then we'll use C-clamps. And we'll use the C-clamps to pull it down tight with the bolt still in. If you don't do it with the bolt still in, what you're going to do is you're going to get these misaligned, and they're going to be really hard to get lined up again. You can use a drift, but it's a lot easier just to use a bolt as a guide as you clamp it down. And then when you get out here to the edges, there's these little these things, and they clamp on to one of the leaves that has holes in it, and then you bolt it down and it holds everything together. But I'm gonna get this greased up and start on the process of clamping her down, and I'll bring you guys back and talk about the next step. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this down. Pull it out. Pull it down as much as we can by hand. And we'll get a pair of wrenches. We'll cinch it down, and we will use C-clamps so we can take the bolt back out. So basically what we're going to do is just put a wrench on there, a wrench down here, tighten that on down. I'm blocking your guys' view with my head. Now you can use like all thread or something. There's a handful of things you can use for this. I'm just using these grade 8 bolts I have here. One of which will end up being my new bolt for this deal because I can't find the other one, like I said. But from here, we take our C-clamps. And then we hit fast forward. Okay, stop fast forward. So that one's on there. Fast forward again. Those are holding. Take this off. Slide her on out. And just go to the next bolt down. If it'll reach. Oh, it's pretty close. Let's see if I can accomplish this without exploding a spring pack in our face. Is this nut back on. Because of the angle here, I'll flip one of these C-clamps. And what they're kind of doing is they're trading off back and forth. So one will get loose as you tighten the other one. You just kind of keep switching back and forth because they're trading which one's holding the bulk of the weight.
But having one on both sides is nice because it pulls it down evenly. And as you're going, make sure that your leaves are lined up here, you know, and set yourself up for issues. All right, are we to that next bolt yet? Yes, we are. Now we can take the bolt off. See, I'm already learning lessons for you guys. And I've done this before. So I'm learning lessons again. I'll probably pull the C-clamps. Use the bolt like we did before. Just pull it on down. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm pulling down the top leaves until you get to the ones with the holes. Because I'll use those clamps to hold this lower part of the pack together. And then we'll pull the bolt out and we'll do the whole thing over again with the upper leaves. And of course, you got to figure out how many leaves you want to run for stiffness and for height. I overswept this thing a little bit, so I'm going to probably run a couple of extra small leaves at the top to raise the backpack up, because I've been chasing it since I did it. Since I swept this thing, I've been chasing it, trying to get the front low enough. And we just put those stock shackles back on the front. And rather than have to chase that some more, I think I'd rather just raise the back up just a touch. Make sure our profile stays right. Okay. Now we go back to the C-clamps. We've used all our threads there. Tight enough to go on. Yeah. Like that. But it's not clearing. What's going on? Let's pull it down some more. Still got a little gap there. Now, I don't like where that clamps. And I'll see if paying attention, this clamp's worked its way out a little. I'll let the other one hold it a little and then reposition. Just pay attention to what you're doing. You can have a spring pack come apart and ruin your frickin' day. Especially these lower springs, I feel like are the ones with the most pop, most danger. So really just be careful. It's not unsafe to do if you do it right and pay attention to what you're doing. There. And now the nut, a little square nut on the back there. And that kind of holds it all together. Put another one on this side, and I think what I will do is probably put a short bolt in here with more threads temporarily as a safety measure, but that kind of gives you the idea though. We have our clamp on. Our clamp's on there. It's starting to squeeze just a touch of grease. Don't over grease. It's starting to squeeze just a touch of grease out, and I didn't put a ton on. But you can also tell as you pull them down how nicely they slide down. There's no screeching or squeaking. They're just nice and easy. You should have just a little bit of squeeze out to wipe away when you're done. Not much. It's good for your skin. Moisturizing. Okay. Let's get this other side on. I'll find a shorter bolt. Easy peasy. Go ahead and snug that up. This one could even be a little shorter, but definitely will stop a lot more pop than that other one would have. That's really what we're trying to prevent here, is a whole bunch of safety to keep it from exploding and hurting somebody. Our other side. And I just got to find the bolt and the nut. Everything around here's been shuffled around a little bit. No extra room, so you got to have it pretty dang close for it to fit. And that one's in. I'll get some more leaves painted up and we'll continue on. Okay, so what we're going to do, I greased this up. I got some more leaves painted, the rest of them. We're going to put our clamps way out here, hopefully outside of where we need to be to fit the rest of the leaves on, and then we'll take the bolt loose and try the long bolt again, see if we can get everything to pull together. So first step is grabbing our C-clamps here. We just want to stay outside of where they rub. Okay. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and loosen this up. Hopefully it mostly stays where it's supposed to be. Now, pop that guy out. Okay. So next, grab all these. See if we can weave them all together here on the longer bolt. Okay. Set them on there. It's close. It is close. Oh, come on. Somehow we got out of alignment here, just a little. Over a little. There. There we go. And there it is. Just gotta get that through enough to get a nut on. Not a washer. Alright, that's a couple threads. Let's see if we can get a couple more. Swap out with the C-clamps so we can switch to a shorter bolt. That's pretty darn close. Now we very carefully, because we don't want any clamps flying off or bending on us, carefully take that loose. That up. And popping that up. Okay, that's out. Now this one takes its place. Just like that. I just lost a thread down here though. Let's see if we can get that on there. Getting there, little by little, bit by bit. As you guys can see, we're slowly winding her down to where she goes. A mixture of using that bolt, using the C-clamps. It's helpful. See guys using spring spreaders and stuff and trying to assemble packs out of the car. Oh, that wasn't enough, was it? Okay. Now what we're going to have to do is tighten this. Hopefully. Got enough thread showing. I thought I did. Close. I don't think it's enough. Enough out of that one. Oh yeah. Caught a thread. Let's see if we can keep from ripping that thread off. Got some more. Oh yeah. Lucky. Factory square nut. And use a factory square nut on our grade 8 bolt. Just like that, look better. So, okay. Anyway, I'm going to stop filming right there and finish this up. But you guys can see it's together. C-clamps could technically come off right now and just cinch down the bolt. That is the bolt I'm going to use. I'm also going to file the corners of that bolt so it fits in the square hole correctly. But there you have it. And I may also just pull that bolt back off now that everything's clamped and aligned. And you can do that just by using your C-clamps. Clamp it down, loosen the bolt. Just don't touch it or breathe too heavy near it. Do what you got to do and then put the bolt back in.
Guys, I wanted to just thank you for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Watching the whole length of the video is mega helpful for me. As I've started getting into YouTube, I've started to recognize things that YouTube's algorithm does to benefit channels. And if I have a friend who has a video that they've uploaded, even if it's a video on something I'm not that into or whatever, I just let the thing play all the way through start to finish. And I make sure I hit that thumbs up and I drop a comment, because those three things, watching the video start to finish, putting a thumbs up and dropping a comment, trigger that YouTube algorithm. The algorithm is this computer generated brain that tries to figure out what people like and stuff, and it boosts views. It sends it out to more people, and it helps a lot. So I appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. I appreciate if you hit that thumbs up. That helps me a lot. And I appreciate if you drop a comment down below. It does help quite a bit. It really does. Also, hit and subscribe. If you guys haven't subscribed already, I would sure appreciate it. I hate begging for subscribers every video. You know, it's even in my little outro clip, because it's just seems like what you got to do. You got to remind people to hit that subscribe button, because people watch videos and they don't think about it. So hit the button, ring the bell. I'd appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. We're getting down to it on this roadster. It's gonna get pretty cool here pretty quick. Anyway, catch you guys on the next one. Later. And don't forget, buy me a cup of coffee is down in the description too. And my email if you ever need to reach out or ask a question or anything.